Let's go back to one of our top stories now. South Africa is experiencing a type of energy racism. That's according to a recent report released by the University of Johannesburg. It says findings show that the black working class is bearing the brunt of the ongoing electricity crisis. Let's speak to Dr. Trevor Ngwane from the University Centre for Sociological Research and Practice. Thank you so much for your time, Doctor. We do appreciate it. I think we briefly touched on the story a few months ago when this report was released, but many would say that some of the townships and some of the failing municipalities that are failing to pay Eskom experience what is now known as load reduction. If I have the name correct, I might have forgotten what it's called, but it's not load shedding, it's you don't have electricity for a certain amount of hours in the day. Why would you say this could possibly be electricity racism?
Thank you very much. Well, load reduction is a form of load shedding which is directed only at poor black working class areas, such as townships, shack settlements, even rural villages. So because of the history of apartheid in South Africa, there is a strong coincidence between race and class. So most of the poor are black. So, you know, the majority of people who live in these areas are black people. So, you know, the thing with racism is that whether intended or not, you know, we as social scientists, certainly policymakers, we have to deal with outcomes. Who suffers from this action, from this policy? And then if it is black people, then, you know, it suggests, you know, this concept of energy racism.
It's a very worrying picture, though, Doctor, because we do know when we ask, for example, the powers that be, and when we ask the power utility, Eskom, why this is happening in particular areas, we are constantly told that they are non-paying clients. Eskom needs to find a way to deal with this and to deal with the demand in these particular areas. What else has your report found with regards to how specific areas are subjected to load reduction, never mind load shedding?
Yes. So what happens is that there is, you know, an old apartheid form of punishment, which was called collective punishment. Can you see? Yeah. So basically, you know, whether you pay your bill every month conscientiously, whether you live alone in your house so you don't overuse electricity, if you live in Soweto or Guguletu or Lamontville or Soshanguve, which just happens to be a black working class area from the days of apartheid geography continues, then you'll be load reduced. So in a way, these areas are kind of racially profiled. So, you know, the argument that there are illegal connections, it's overcrowded, people don't pay, you know, is a form of racial profiling. That is why, you know, this load reduction, indeed, the load shedding itself is not just a question of economics, convenience and comfort. You know, we're all suffering, but it is also a social justice issue if it hits the poorest of the poor and it hits certain race groups more than others.
I'm wondering if your report engages at all with, for example, the power utility to try and get an understanding as to why they do this and how, and if they see a problem with the fact that only certain areas have to deal with load reduction.
Well, you know, we couldn't get to speak with the, you know, powers that be at Eskom. But we did engage with their documents. We also looked at most of the notices they, you know, issue, telling us which areas are going to be load reduced. And indeed, we found that, you know, all the areas which were targeted were black areas. Now, they say they target those areas, as I've mentioned, and I think you two mentioned, which are overcrowded. Which areas are overcrowded? It's not Umhlanga Rocks, it's not Constantia, it's not Sentin, where people are not paying. And we all know that it's not that people don't want to pay. There might be those, but because of poverty, high unemployment, and those people don't live in Sentin. They also say areas where there's illegal connections. As you know that often we find illegal connections in shack settlements where people, you also find it in townships, where people feel, they need a safe source of energy. As you know, every year we have shack fires, children, people dying. So there is a question of survival. So basically it boils down to racial profiling. But worse than that, it's a carryover, it's a continuity from apartheid days. The idea that black people, don't want to pay. So they've got a concept, the culture of non-payment. And then, there's a lot of propaganda about the Soweto debt. Let's be honest, if I can continue, but maybe you want to...
Yes, no, definitely. You can continue on the issue of this non-paying Soweto area
Yes.
and the debt, because I think that exacerbates a lot of their load reduction.
Yes, yeah. So basically all that it's a cover, it's scapegoating the poor. I mean, we all know that Eskom is failing totally to actually manage our energy resources. We can talk about how they built Medupi, Kusile, new power plants and made a real mess of it. They are not yet fully operational. We can talk about the slowness to move to renewable energy. As you know that, just now you had a story about flooding in Durban. The reason there is flooding in Durban is because of global warming, climate change, and it's not just South Africans who are dying or people who live in South Africa. We know that a few years ago in Mozambique, in Zambia, in Mozambique there was a cyclone Idaya, I think it was called. So the world is suffering because we are busy burning coal, burning fossil fuels. But also, we've got a real problem because now, to say that, we should focus our energy on black working class areas is barking the wrong tree, because research shows clearly that, high intensive energy users, electricity users, it's big business, it's richer upper middle class areas. So poor people actually consume less of the energy. So if you really want to reduce demand, you have to target a different part of the social structure. So actually they are just barking the wrong tree. That's why this problem of electricity, of shortages, will never go away in South Africa.
It's a very big problem. I wish we had more time, but thank you so much for speaking to us this evening about this ongoing electricity crisis that we face and how certain areas, for example, townships, are being affected and are load reduced, which causes a very big problem. That was Dr. Trevor from UJ Center for Sociological Research and Practice.